Welcome everybody. Hi, I'm Ian Heptinstall, Senior Systems Engineer at Veeam. I've got 20 years experience in cybersecurity and data protection, and I'll be taking you through some data protection challenges and kind of how to address that with the right data strategy moving forward. We should all be very privileged today. We'll be joined by a Veeam evangelist with Zubair. And he will take you through our data protection report and the findings that should be quite prevalent to kind of why we're all here today.
Thank you, Ian. Zubair Janjua here. I am not an evangelist, but we'll tell you the story later on if you come up to our stand or stay around for a beer. I'm actually a territory manager at Veeam. What we're here today, as Ian said, is to also talk around choosing the right data protection strategy. So hopefully today we'll take you through some key statistics that we found and give you some more indication of how you can ensure the right protections are in place for your business. So getting straight into it, one of the things that Veeam have done over the last few years is created a data protection trends report. And the report is built around a number of businesses across the world of various sizes, various industries, some Veeam customers, some non-Veeam customers. And what we've done is taken these participants, asked them a number of questions, and through that collated some of the information which I'd like to share with you today. One of the first ones is the frequency of incidents that occurred in 2021. Now, the question that we asked was, how many ransomware attacks had your organization suffered over the last 12 months or over 2021? And what we found was 24% of the respondents said they hadn't suffered a ransomware attack or weren't aware of suffering any ransomware type activity within their business. Interesting. On the other side, we found that there were a number of organizations that suffered one, or more scarily, multiple attacks over the course of 2021. Now, typically when a ransomware attack occurs within an organization, it's normally batten down the hatches, reinvest in technology, understand where the challenges lie in the short term and fix the gaps and the problems, and then start building on those mid to long term issues that are occurring, such as training, enablement for staff, re-educating the team to understand where gaps might lie and what they should look out for in the future. And beyond that, also considering some of the other elements that we need to take into consideration, such as the impact from a perspective of investors or customers and the challenges that they might face in that perspective as well. So looking at this, there's companies that have faced 5 or more incidents in the period of 12 months. Now, after one, there's a lot of challenge. Considering we have multiple, where has that come from? I guess that's where the big question is. Why has it happened so many times? How did these attacks occur on multiple occasions? Unfortunately, there's no straightforward answer. It might be down to customer spend, being reluctant in the ongoing climate around some of the challenges that they're facing with monetary issues and stuff in order for them not to be able to spend as much and are still utilizing some of the legacy solutions that they have in place. Utilizing those legacy solutions leads to further problems when we know hackers are constantly finding ways of innovating and targeting new environments, new attack vectors to get into an organization. And that's where we need to really consider how we go about building the right data protection strategy. Now, if we collate all this information, what we find is 76% of the organizations had encountered at least one or more cyber attack. And that's where we start to question, well, what happened within the actual organization? A lot of the times we know that there's shadow IT still within the organization and there's a lack of visibility or a lack of understanding of what that means. Sometimes it's a simple case of employees, end users finding new ways of doing something, finding innovative ways of doing something, or equally finding shortcuts and their ways around the system. It might also come down to a number of other things when we start to consider the threat vectors and the threat landscape collectively. When we start talking around new environments such as the cloud, a lot of people might be moving to the cloud or might be considering a move to the cloud. And that's where there's other battles when we start to think, well, we're not as educated in those places and spaces. So we need to build that transition process and get to speed to understand it. However, we understand that hackers are doing the exact same thing. They're also focused on trying to find innovative ways and disruptive ways to target these spaces. And it takes that one occurrence for something to happen. From those 76% of businesses, what we actually did was ask them a further question. How much of your data were you able to recover? And were you able to recover any of your data? And that's where we found out of those 76% of participants who faced a ransomware attack, 64% said they could recover some data or all of their data. We split that over this graph here, and apologies, the numbers are quite small, so if you can't see them, I'll shout a few out. On the right here, we've got more than 80%, ranging all the way down to 20% or less of their data that they were able to recover. It's great to see here, though, that 36% were able to recover most, if not all, of their data. So, good on them. It's positive. The other side of the coin, though, shows a different story. 36% were unable to recover any of their data or all of their data, and that's a massive implication. We start to consider some of the things that they've potentially lost in that space. When you look at patient records, health records, customer data, competitive information, sensitive information such as their investments or strategy, and if those go into the wrong hands, what implications do those have on businesses as well? And then on top of that, you start thinking financial records, credit card details, things that are typically stored online now, and what that means for that business. And as I said before, the long-term effects of what that could occur for those organizations. So what happens if you're hit with a ransomware attack? Well, we broke the question back out to all the participants and asked them this question. Well, if we are looking at the impacts of a cyber attack, what had happened in terms of those impacts, or what could have happened to your business if you had faced a ransomware incident? Now, at the top of the list, we see loss of customer confidence at 50%, one of the highest responses that we got from the survey, from the report. Now, it's not a monetary value, interestingly, but it could be argued that that is the start of the domino effect. At that point, they start to lose customers, they start to lose business, they are in the public domain, known for the wrong reasons. There's challenges with investors and the ongoing problem there of rebuilding that trust and ensuring that they are, recognized as a trusted business. But there are other areas here, such as damage to brand integrity, which was considerably high as well, very close in that space. Loss of employee confidence, what knock-on effects could happen there, employees leaving, saying the wrong things, telling internal information. Again, we start touching on those competitive aspects as well. But then also we've got reduced stock price and being subject to legal action. A few years ago, there was the big incidents with Marriott and British Airways, which was quite public following the GDPR regulations. Both were handed high-value fines, and it's all known in the public domain. There was a lot of backlash on those businesses. And for them, unfortunately, the suffering wasn't just at the point of impact. It was the long-lasting impact 3 or 5 years later for those businesses as GDPR was rolled out and then implemented onto them. And when we start thinking about the actual financial impact at the start of a ransomware attack, albeit some of these don't mention that, we think about the fact that on average, a company could face in an hour 90K worth of loss. Break that down per minute, you're looking at 1.5K per minute. Now we know that in an hour, not everything is going to be fixed, so we consider the cost and implications that occur then the long-term costs as well. And that's not necessarily financial. Again, it's these points. How do they rebuild that confidence? How do you go ahead and build the integrity of your brand again? How do you ensure that investors are supporting you and behind your business? And those are some of the long-term lasting impacts. And that's where we really got to consider building the right data protection strategy in order for us to remain protected today, as well as in the future as things change in our business. How do you like your odds? Well, unfortunately, as we've been saying, hackers need one way in. It's as simple as that. They can go around in all kinds of environments, finding new ways, creative ways, sophisticated ways of targeting the business. Unfortunately for us, it's a case of we've got to be protected in all angles, in all areas, and ensure that there's no way in. Now, we know it's a case of it's not if, it's when. So how do we beat that? And again, that's where we've got to build the right contingencies into our business plan.
Thank you, Zubair. So we've got all of these defenses in place. We're doing a lot with our data protection. But why is cyber security and anti-malware, ransomware so successful? I mean, the easiest answer is just that they're innovative. They're ahead of the game. They're doing everything proactively, and we're always being reactive. So an anti-malware provider said that they catch or they see 1 million new threats every single day. Well, if they see 1 million every single day, even if they catch 99% of them, there's still 10,000 new threats every single day that could compromise your data, your application, and your services. So when you break that down to, well, what are the challenges for data protection? And if you've already gone ahead and read some of these, you'll find that all of these are still happening today. You would like to think you've eliminated them all. They were there 20 years ago, they're still there today. Apart from maybe the odd cloud name at the bottom there might be the slight difference. So if we start with backup, that'd be a great place to start for myself. So untested backups
contributes to that 36% that couldn't be recovered, contributes to lack of being able to recover from any simple damage to data, such as an accidental deletion. In the case of ransomware, though, if you're not doing your testing, backup, and following best practice, you're going to be in a position where you have no idea whether you can recover, even if you are compromised. So what do we think about testing backups? We always think operational nightmare. We've got an overhead, we've got an extra step to perform to make sure our backups are correct. So how can we do that automatically? So with Veeam, and we'll cover that in a little bit later, is that we can do automated testing and give you that confidence that if you do have an attack, you're able to recover from that data attack. Alert fatigue. Again, everybody will have looked at monitoring products. They've got things in place to alert around security, backups, even just things like I get space, I get memory, I get reporting on all of these things that are happening in my data center. So how do I prioritize which one is actually a problem for me and which one is something that I need to deal with? One of our customers had an active attack. They were alerted 4 hours before the attack that somebody was in on their system, and it got suppressed. Alert fatigue in IT operations is a really big issue. So we need to look and focus on prioritizing what alerts are dealt with and what alerts are suppressed and worked with. The challenge you have there is that if you don't deal with that and you don't get the alerting sorted, you're going to end up with a priority incident that causes major disruption. And for the amount of time it takes to fine-tune and do the correct alerting, you'll find that outweighs any attack information or damage that you have to your data. The other thing that we all have today, we all have a password. We all have weak passwords. You probably got them on your home Wi-Fis or your phones. But actually in a corporate environment, we seem to think it's IT's responsibility to put in multi-factor authentication or to stop us from putting in weak passwords. But we all find a way. We all put in a loophole or a post-it note or things like this. Poor password management is a really big issue for data protection as a whole. So even if you have a good backup strategy and you can recover, that's not going to help you when it comes to password, because that's keys to the kingdom. So you need to be focusing on password management and improving that, especially when it comes to production data and backup data. The other part of any policy management is that you have a patch management policy. Missing patches, not doing patching is a big problem, because right now you start off, I've got a brand new system, great, it's new, it's shiny, it's got all of the security protections that I need. 2 months down the line, it's got an exploit. If you're not patching and keeping up to date, you end up in a situation where your phone goes off and you become vulnerable and you think you're in the best position. Again, one of the reasons why patching doesn't happen is operational time. You want to keep your systems up 24/7. Well, that's great, but if you don't patch and you don't have it backed up, you can't recover. That 24-hour operation doesn't become a 24 operation. Then 36% of them companies either went bust or couldn't recover any digital data. So they had to go back to paper and rebuild. We don't want to be in that position. And the one I'd like to cover off last is misconfiguration. So misconfiguration, I don't mean somebody that doesn't know how to install a system. What I actually mean by misconfiguration is the business needs something. We need to then go through all of our compliance, and we decide not to do that because it's the quickest way, is the business needs this up and running and active. So we misconfigure the security policies, the backup policies, the changes to the system that basically create a loophole. And that is a really big issue. And when we cover off the attack vectors, all of the security and the great policy work that you've done is still going to be overwritten by a misconfiguration of a security. So how can we address that with data protection? Because at the end of the day, we're looking at backup. So you should already know this by now, the 3-2-1 rule. If you don't, I'll cover it in a moment. We have 3 different data copies. One of them is your production environment. You've all got a production environment. You should all have a backup, and then you should have another copy of your backup. And the reason for that is that you're then going to put it on a different, going on to number 2, onto a different media type. So if you have a backup on a disk appliance that then fails, if you've got a copy on another disk appliance with the same operating system and same firmware on the disk, that's potentially going to have the same failure rate. So what you want is a different media type. On here, it's tape. People say tape's dead. We don't say tape's dead. We see it actively growing at the moment with the security risks and the benefits of tape. However, most people are going to cloud, and I know Mike will be very happy about that. So we've got most customers are focusing on a cloud strategy of some form. So having a second copy also in the cloud eliminates the number one as well. So we now have a copy offsite. But we've already gone through, this is a traditional method. So how does this help us with the landscape changing with cyber? So we'll start with what I've already covered, testing backups. We want our backups to have a 0 in there, 0 errors, ability to recover and function directly out of the backup if needs be. So that's great, we're now on a 32110. Let's add in the security element, and you can take away this, 32110 is now what we're looking at. And the one is at least, in the old days, would be air-gapped or offline, but we're in a modern world, data needs to always be online and always recoverable. So we bring in an element which is called immutability, or immutable on there, and that's the ability to protect your backup data from ransomware attacks, from modification, deletion, and insider threat. So nobody can actually take away that data or delete that data until a timestamp period. So you can set that for forever if you want, but if you're looking to do 7 days, you can set immutability for 7 days. Then backups will not be removed for 7 days by any method, even the backup technology itself. That is the one. That is the most important. That's the reason why we're here today. That is the correct way to do a modern data protection strategy. So 32110 is the new rule. So how can Veeam help with that? So this is my bit of a sales pitch now. I'm not the salesperson, this guy's the salesperson. But Veeam's got the ability to do the immutability. So we've mentioned that. How does that work? We enable immutability on-premise and in the cloud. So as your data moves around, you're able to protect that from any form of insider threat or malicious intent. Backup verification. So with our Shore backup product, we're able to automate testing of backups to make sure that you can not be one of the companies that ends up with the situation where they can't recover. The ability there is that you can power on your backups, test them in isolation, and that allows you to have the full confidence that not only do I have a safe backup, I have a backup that can actually work in a production recovery. We can also use instant recovery. So great to be able to recover data, but if I can't recover it fast, what's the point? The downtime could be longer than my business can take. Having instant VM recovery or instant data recovery allows us to recover the data services and applications instantly from the backup into the production environment and ready to fail over at a point in time that is suited to you. So, okay, I've now been attacked, I've got instant recovery, but I've got my data, I'm firefighting to make sure that I'm not being hit by my firewalls and I'm doing all of this. So how do I know my recovery data is actually clean and I'm not just bringing in another security flaw? Secure Restore. When you bring your backups back, you can scan them with your latest threat detection within your anti-malware product to then stop any recovery of the same virus or the same scam or the same ransomware that you had, because it stays dormant. If we're all being honest now, you'll go and speak to the guys, they'll say, it's already on your environment, it'll trigger at a point in time. Well, you don't want to recover and bring that data back, that virus back, so make sure you're doing Secure Restore. I'm going to hand you over to the salesperson to do a full pitch on our portfolio, but all of this brings together nicely into kind of our ecosystem.
Exactly that, and thank you, Ian. And some of the things Ian's mentioned there, as well as looking back at some of those statistics that we saw through the Data Protection Trends report, the one thing that Veeam can provide is a single platform that can protect and manage all your workloads across the data center, to the edge, and to the cloud. Veeam's recognized and known for the virtual estate and the virtual environments, and that was our heritage. It still is part of our business, and we are still recognized in the marketplace for that. We started off with VMware and Hyper-V as our platform to work with, but as you can see here, we've expanded significantly, and that's based upon the growth in the IT industry. It's the fact that environments are changing. We need to now consider areas such as the physical states, unstructured data, applications. I mentioned Kubernetes before. Containerized platforms is becoming a new buzzword. It's a new topic that's out there. A lot of people are interested in this space. But as I said before, interest is great, education is important, and that's where there's always a risk, and that's what we need to start plugging in as soon as possible. We've also got protections around SaaS platforms, Microsoft 365. We know the uptick in 365 was a massive growth over the course of the pandemic, and it still is growing significantly over that period. And we've got Salesforce backup there as well. And then touching finally into the top left there, we've got cloud environments. Being able to natively protect your cloud workloads across the 3 hyperscalers mentioned there, Azure, AWS, as well as Google Cloud Platform as well. And as I said before, it's a single platform. You're able to bring it all together, manage it successfully, and remain protected. Veeam look at it as you put Veeam at the heart of your infrastructure. It will be able to protect as your environment is today, again, going back to the virtual estates that many customers still have. But when we start to expand or change our environments due to business need, business strategy, challenges, we need to start considering how the protections are in place. And with Veeam, you're able to naturally move around as you need to and ensure that the protections are still adequate in whichever platform or environment you operate in. And that's the advantage that we have with some of the solutions that we offer through our core product, Veeam Backup and Replication, monitoring analytics, Veeam One, and that's not just considering the performance of the backup or your challenges with overpowered VMs. It's looking at the wider infrastructure as well and taking into consideration some of the other implications that might affect your business, such as storage requirements, capacity planning, forecasting, or even charging back to departments within your organization as well. And then we offer it in a multitude of ways. I mentioned 2 here. The first is managing it yourself, being able to bring that in-house, control it, own it, deploy it, and as I was saying, change the environment as you need to as well. So build that to your own liking as well as your business strategy and changes. And then we also have as a service as well, providing you a full wrap. We have a couple of guys here today, as well as upstairs, that can talk to you more about our Veeam cloud service providers, number of businesses across the UK that we operate with and work quite closely with to ensure that Veeam stays empowered within your organization, providing you a simple solution, the flexibility as you see here, but also something that you can rely on as well. And behind all of this, with the service provider's assistance, you'll gain a lot of knowledge around how to put in the right data protection strategy in place, the contingencies that I mentioned, but also plan ahead for the future as well.
Thank you, Zubair. So before we leave, just want to remind you all, 3211 is and 0 is the new rule for data protection. But part of the data protection report was, oh, it's great, we see people can't recover, we see people that can recover, we've got a load of information regarding kind of attacks and security principles throughout. So when we said we don't know what actually caused the attacks, we do actually have this information. So how did the ransomware enter these environments that actually had the attacks? Still today, and this is mind-blowing, that we're still getting caught out by phishing emails, dodgy website links. All that is user education. You can go away, have a look at security products, it's great, and get a security product that will protect these when they are clicked. But user education is priority number 1, obviously, and better backup. But then we've also infected patches and software. I can't imagine the amount of times that an IT administrator has to stand there and go, why did you install that? What are you clicking on there? Do you know what it is? Still, one of the major concerns, USB sticks with executables on. You've got to be careful about this and go away and find products that can protect you. And one of the largest increases at the moment is insider threat. So we've got that for data protection, immutability, but what else have you got? Who's got access to this data that is going to be at some point compromising that data? You need to go and find products that can do that, protect that data from insider threat. One of the highest growing markets there for kind of damage to reputation. And then the 0-day invulnerability. We're all here because ransomware has happened and somebody's had, these are all 0 days, so you might not be able to detect them, but what mitigations can you put in place? Go and speak to the guys from all of the other vendors, find out what they can do to help you mitigate that risk, because it's not a matter of if, you will end up with an attack, you want to mitigate the impact of that attack. Immutability for backup, other products to protect your production environment. So with that, thank you very much, everybody, and come and see us on stand 13 if you want to know more.
Thank you, guys.